Thanks, Brandon. I'm the reason Brandon said this is going to take 2 hours, but I won't. Um, God, it's exciting to see everything y'all done to this place. Um, how innovative are these power lines made out of rope to train with? Y'all may take that for granted. A good friend of mine in Arlington, Texas, Ronnie Snow, put up a ladder at Station 7, showing where the rookies how to put up a ladder, or they're practicing with it, hit power lines, killed them dead on the doornail. So I love to see that. Never would have thought of it. Y'all are just awesome. I love the ideas and the ingenuity that y'all come up with nowadays. And I hope that's on a foundation that these guys built from years of having to come up with overcoming the obstacles that we had to deal with. When I first came to wylie was an ISO Class 6. And what that means, that's how they rate your fire department, and that's how they determine how much money you're going to pay in fire insurance on your house. Today, it's your ISO rating and your last hailstorm determines how much you pay. But you've got an ISO Class 1, so you're paying the lowest fire portion of your insurance. But back then, it's an ISO Class 6. And for a city of our size, I came from Arlington, and if you don't think this department's not influenced by Arlington, you weren't here back in the 90s. And if you don't think Arlington's not influenced by the Los Angeles Fire Department out of California, then you don't see what you're doing, or you don't understand the best of the best of the best. Los Angeles is the best fire department in the United States. Everybody north of Oklahoma is a bunch of Yankees that don't have a clue what they're doing. You want to know who's doing it right? Go to California. Except for today, you want to know who's doing it right? Come to Wylie, Texas. I guarantee you I know what I'm talking about. Back then, we had a lot of good things going on. The guys are working their tails off 24/7. They talk about all the time it took to do this, but they still had so much to do in the community. They're having to inspect every business in town. That's all part of the ISO rating. They had to flow and test every hydrant in town. And if you ever take them in, look how many hydrants there are in town. We had a great water system. The engineers before us did a great job of putting in a great and strong water system. We had the North Texas Municipal Water District here in Wylie, and what an asset that was for us in the fire department and our rating with the ISO. When we looked at what we had and what we wanted to do is improve our ISO rating, we made a list of what we didn't have, and that was a very long list. When we very first started looking at this, it was about a year before they told us we were going to get an ISO rating, so we're about a year out. And it took us a long time to learn about ISO because it was new to Texas. The rest of the nation was being rated on ISOs, but Texas was not. And so we had to learn a lot about it and what that meant and how that affected us. And so we looked at all the equipment we had to have, all the equipment we had to make, because it's a detailed list of some really old ways of doing things. And we're a very modern fire department. This is the most technological fire department in the nation. It's talking about advances and things you do and the equipment you have. And if you don't know that, you haven't looked around. But 4 things were big obstacles in achieving our goal of getting a better ISO rating. And we had already had the biggest obstacle in place, and that was fire station number 2 and staffing it. The second thing was the training hours, and Chief Ritter, who's a captain back then, had to really think out of the box, because the amount of training your fire department does and all the different things that they do is just unbelievable. And it was really a tough thing to get enough hours to get our full credit back then. And so Brian had to think out of the box, and we had many conversations about what is training. That's how basic we had to get at what is training so we could get enough credit. And these guys trained all the time. In this department, Your personnel train more than any other department in the state of Texas, I guarantee it. Just by the design of these trucks out here. All these other departments are running an engine and a truck. This department is running a Quint, which is an engine and a truck. It's very efficient. It's the best thing that could happen, because no matter what you're dealing with, when that apparatus pulls up, it's equipped to handle anything that happens. Car wreck, structure fire, truck operations, ventilation, fighting fire, hazmat, rescue, I don't care. When that truck rolls up, it's designed and equipped to handle any emergency that comes up. And those personnel in that truck have to be trained on all of that. In Arlington, you're trained to be a truckie or an engine crew. If you're on the engine crew, you run your butt off 24/7. EMS calls would just wear you out. If you're on the truck company, you made 2 calls a month. The rest of the time they sat on their butts. Who all went to the truck? The guys that were old, that didn't care about EMS, and weren't so much in the fire department anymore. They basically retired on these trucks. Well, I was a lieutenant running 24/7, and I thought that's a messed up system. And that's when I thought that I could do a better job. And that's why I became a fire chief, because I felt like I could come up with a better idea, make a more efficient system, and do a better job. And that's when we came up with the Quint concept. We weren't the first in the nation to do it. The first one was St. Louis, but what they did was they had Quints, little Quints that ran like engines, and the big Quints that ran like a truck. This is the first department in the nation that I'm aware of that's running a Quint concept where you've got a Quint at each station with 4 people on it. A lot of these facts I'm going to tell you, I looked up on Google and ChatGTP. So some of the stuff it didn't have the answer for, but I'm going to pass it on to you anyway. Another big thing we had to get over was dispatch, and we have some great dispatchers, always have. But our documentation in the dispatch center had to be done a certain way. One of the problems we were having is by the time we hit the tone to get the information out to the stations was running over a minute, which is still very efficient, and every department in the nation is doing that. But we had to get that down below that, and that's when we came out with a pre-alert, where as soon as they got the information, they hit the tone, said we got a structure fire at 412 South Ballard Street, and it stopped the clock. And that's just one of the ways that we came up with to be able to get that time down to where we get the points for it. And then the last thing, and the biggest obstacle, was a training center. And the biggest obstacle to the training center was the training tower. And the reason that was an issue, because your training tower has to be as high as your tallest unsprinklered building in the city. Well, our tallest building was 3 stories. Now, we could deal with that. But there was this big old cement building somewhere in the city, I don't remember where it was, that was over 40 foot tall, which is 4 stories. And even though it was nothing but cement, we had to match that building to get full credit for the tower. And so it was really kind of difficult to find telephone poles that tall, but we found them. And that's how it got built. So anyway, we had to get creative on the tower itself and design and how we're doing that, because we wanted the full credit for it. We were a small department, but we had a lot of great things going for us. 1, our personnel, and 2, the city itself and the foundation it was built on. The biggest problem was we didn't have 10 cents to build a training center. We didn't have the support back then that y'all do now. And the city didn't have the funding back then that you do now. So I had to get creative. And to be honest with you, that year we were building this, we had budgeted for some equipment that I knew we wouldn't buy, that I knew I could get past. And we bought a lot of used equipment that year, things that we were budgeted for. Fortunately, we live right next to Plano, and they waste so much stuff, it's not even funny. So when we had it in our budget to buy it, they sent it off to auction. It was brand new equipment. We bought it, brought it to Wylie, and we put that money in the savings account for the training center. And there's some equipment that we put in the budget that we weren't going to buy, we did not buy, but it was our way to get around the system that we're in at the time to come up with the funds to build this. this is probably the most efficiently cost in a training center you've ever seen. And by nature, I'm cheap anyway. If you know me, I'm cheap. And it was big on Craigslist. I love going to auction, and we found this lady up near McKinney, I think it was, that was going to build this huge bridge. They were millionaires on their property or something. And they decided not to do it, and they had all these 2x6s and 2x8s that were brand new sitting out in the pasture. She put it on for sale for Craigslist. I saw it. I got with the guys. We all got together on our day off, and we took all the trailers and trucks we had, and nobody's buying it because it's back to this pasture where you couldn't get to it. We got to it. We had about 30 guys out there. We loaded up all that lumber. We brought it all back out here, and that's the lumber we used to build that training tower. And it was a great buy. Saved us some money. We had a little bit of money left over to do some of the stuff we needed to do. It was originally designed as a regional tower. Murphy built the simulator out here. Parker provided timbers here. It was originally designed to be a regional center. That kind of phased out because everybody ended up doing what they wanted to do. But for the next 10 shifts, when we got to that point, we were under a timeline. That's what I told Captain Scribner, man, this has got to get done, and we've got to have it before the inspection. And they were out here all the time. Jeff did a great job describing what they did, but the most impactful thing to me was pulling up one day at the station, and it's the day he's talking about, when it was sleeting and raining, and I come back out here, and the Quint's parked out here. Jeff's out by the Quint, and Tupi's hanging from a rope 30 feet up in the air, hanging from a rope when there's ice on the poles, ice on the wood that they were built. I was freezing my butt off. And I went up to Jeff and I said, "What are y'all doing?" And thinking they're kind of nuts, he said, "It's got to get done, and we're going to do it." And they did it. But they were out there in those days. I just could not believe that they did that. They built the training tower along with the roof simulator, which you will find. We got those from Arlington, which we got from California. There's influences here that you don't see that I know about. Your instant command system come from California to Arlington to us. Hopefully you're still using it and still good at it, because you know what? I perfected it and I taught it to you, and I hope you soak that up. The trench rescue simulator, that driveway that you see over there, that was from people in our community, construction contractors and companies in Wylie, that we told them we didn't have money to build a road, we needed a road, and they come up with it and built it for us. That's the kind of community you're living in. You've got so much support here. And I remember the day that we announced that we had an ISO Class 1 rating, that we won it. We did it. It's ISO Class 1, not a 2, which is the same as a Class 1, except you got the bragging rights that you're the best of the best of the best, and that's what this department is. Something that a lot of you may not know, but back then, in 2002, your average home insurance a year was about $1,300. I had a little bit above average house back then, but that's what my insurance was at ISO Class 6. When we got the ISO Pass 1, ISO Class 1 rating, our insurance went from $1,300 to $700 a year. So you're saving $600. Well, right before then, the fire department took over dispatch. Why? Because we do things better. And there's a long story there, but that's the absolute truth. When we took over the dispatch, the police department's over it, and we were this department that they just had to dispatch as part of the job. We took it over. It was now a service that we provided to police, fire, EMS, and animal control. And it was something that we were going to do, is providing a good service for those departments, a totally different outlook. I guarantee you the police department's dispatch service improved, the fire department's improved, animal control improved. It's a whole different approach than having to do it and saying this is a service we provide to our customers. And the fire department looks at things that way. But we took over alarm monitoring, and if you were having your alarm monitored back then, it's $30 a month for your house. We took it over; it was free. So we saved you $600 on your insurance a year. We saved you $360 a year on your alarm monitoring. Your property taxes for the city of Wylie back then were $700. We saved you over $1,000 a year from the fire department alone. If you were your alarm was being monitored, you made a profit living in Wylie compared to your taxes. You're paying $700 a year in taxes, but you're saving $1,060. Yeah. I'm going to tell you some things you may not know about your department, and then I'll shut up. I know this is running long. But as stated earlier, Wylie Fire Department was the first department in the nation to go from a 6 to a 1. That record is still held today. No other department in the nation has ever done that, gone from a 6 to a 1. They've had some go from 4 to 3s, 2 to 1s, 4 to 1s, but this one department's ever done a 6 to a 1. We were the first combination department to ever achieve ISO Class 1. We had paid part-time volunteer departments. We were the first one in the nation to ever achieve a Class 1. Sorry, I just want to stay up here. We were the first department in the nation to integrate the Incident Command System in the Emergency Operations Center. Did you know that? And I assure you, there's so many others that have done that. We were the first in the nation to do that. You don't know that, and I'm telling you this is the truth. You were the first department to push an apparatus into the bay when it was brand new. We started that with Quint 1, did it with Quint 2, and I guarantee you it took off like wildfire after that. And if you ever look online, you'll see other departments doing that all the time. You were the first ones to ever do that. You're the first department that I'm aware of, and that Chat GTP is aware of, that ever took over dispatch for police, fire, EMS, and animal control. You're the first department in Texas to adopt a Quint concept. And this true Quint concept, as far as I know, you were the first to adopt it in the nation. You're the first department in the nation to deploy a CAF system on all frontline apparatus. And I don't have a clue why these other traditional departments haven't adopted that. The system you use, the CAF system, is so efficient. It is so efficient at fighting fire, and it reduces water damage, and you get ISO credit for doing it. You're the first department in the nation to ever adopt a CAF system into a Quint. You're the first department that I'm aware of in Texas that fully integrated a private EMS with a fire department. When we were running, when we first adopted this, we were dispatching the ambulance with the fire department. We were staffing the second and third out ambulances from the fire station, and Chief Ballard was very instrumental in putting that system together, but it was fully integrated. You're the first department I've ever heard of, and I haven't seen you doing it, that is doing positive pressure ventilation prior to putting the tack lines in the front door. That may sound simple to y'all. Y'all may take that for granted, but how out of the box thinking is that? Amazing. Y'all are carrying out a tradition of being original, coming up with new ideas and making it and then implementing it. You're the second city in Texas that I know of besides Austin that basically has integrated a third city service into your EMS system. And it just kind of blew my mind when y'all did that, when y'all hired EMTs and paramedics, put them on the ambulances, and then integrated them in the fire department. Well, the city of Austin has a third city service, and that's kind of what y'all have done, but you've integrated that into your fire department. And that's just simply out of the box thinking, and makes me very proud that y'all are that innovative, and that y'all are still carrying on that tradition. I'll tell you something, there's bigger departments out there than Wylie, but you're not going to find one better. You're the best trained, best equipped, best led department that I've ever seen. Your leadership is 10 times better than when I was in office. And I'm so proud of all of you. I'm proud of the personnel that are doing the job in the street, all the way up to the fire chief and the city manager that make it happen every day. I just want to say they may be bigger, but they're not better. This is the finest fire department in the nation. You may not know it, but you are. Thank you.